Most of the big companies now, they have so removed the profit margin from small business that there's just no coming back from that from a small business standpoint. Your small business is going to run circles around your big companies. That's true, they can all day long. The problem is that there isn't any margin left because the big companies are subsidized. Remember, they live on the subsidy aspect of it. We don't see it that way, right? I mean, it's a shell game, right? It's sort of like when you go to see a magician's act, right? Long time ago, I gave the analogy of going to see the Penn and Teller show. And this is true. I actually went to the Penn and Teller show, and I sat, I think, in the second row of the Penn, back when, this is years ago. And they did the cups and the balls trick, right? We're all familiar with the cups and balls, okay? We've all seen, go on YouTube, you can see Penn and Teller, they'll do that trick. And they do it with little foil balls, and they do it with clear cups. And even though they're telling you the exact how they do that trick the entire time, they're telling you how they do it, you still don't believe it because it's so fast. It's that sleight of hand, it's that legerdemain thing that they're doing, right? Okay, well, that's the way the subsidies work. It's cleverly hidden. It's right there in front of you. You can see how it works. You just don't understand it as a subsidy. Just like I talk about when I explain to people UBI. I've told people point blank, UBI is just a bailout for higher prices. That's all it is. It's just you get some money and you get to pay these higher prices rather than the prices coming down. That's why I've pointed out there's no such thing as a liquidity crisis. Liquidity crisis is not a thing. That has never been a thing. That's an invented term by economists out of the big three Ivy League douchebag schools. Okay, that's it's a liquidity crisis. Oh my gosh, no. What a liquidity crisis is, for those of you who don't know what the hell that means, a liquidity crisis is when a bunch of people buy a bunch of shit and they start paying anything for all of this crazy shit, and then they find out that there's nobody there to buy it back from them. That's all a liquidity crisis is. It's think of it this way, it's rich people who paid too much for a bunch of crazy shit, thinking they were going to corner the market on it. And now they can't get out of it because there isn't enough of a back end market to absorb all of that. That's all it is. So the idea is, we have to come up with a way to solve the liquidity crisis. Well, the way you solve that is that all you people who paid too much for all that shit, you go broke, right? That's the actual solution. That's the free market solution. That's the honest solution. This is why I get frustrated with my leftist followers that are out there. A handful of leftist followers, but I still have you guys. Still love you guys. I mean, you guys are funny. Like, no, we need to tax the rich and use that money to feed this and do that and come up with free healthcare, whatever. You guys don't understand how this works. You don't have to tax the rich. You just have to stop bailing them the fuck out. That's it. Just stop bailing them out. Let them fail. Let them buy all this crap. And then when they run out of money and they run into a liquidity crisis, that's it. That's the end of the road for them. They go broke. They've got a bunch of shit that nobody wants, but that's it. And they just go broke. Life goes on, right? I mean, or you go in there and like, oh, hey, I'll buy it back, but or I'll buy it from you, but I'm only going to pay this much because that wasn't worth that much in the first place. Like, why the hell did you do all this? That's all you got to do. That's really all that it takes. You don't have, and by the way, everything I just explained to you, the reason why a lot of you leftists don't like what I just explained is because there's no council of elders that you all believe falsely that you're going to be sitting on. You all think you're going to be a blue shirt and you're going to bring your wisdom to the masses rather than let the market fix itself. There is a wisdom of crowds, and the market can pretty much self-correct by just not letting people print a bunch of money to bail themselves out of a liquidity crisis, which is exactly what happens now. That's exactly how this goes down. What happens now is a bunch of rich people try and go in and corner the markets and commercial real estate, and residential real estate, and all these other bullshit schemes. And then they realize they can't get out of it. And so, oh no, there's a liquidity crisis. We need to find some way to bail these people out. And that's where things like UBI come from. All right, so where welfare comes from. It's where all this stuff comes from. Rather than the prices coming down like they're supposed to meet the market demand, instead you just give the market more free money, which causes inflation, which creates all the disaster we're experiencing at this very moment, and allows those prices to keep going right on up. That's what happens. Oh, but they'll hoard and they won't let. Okay, well then what you do is you go somewhere else. You're just like, okay, well you just leave them with their empire of dirt, right? My sweetest friend, you just leave them there. You leave them there with their empire of fucking dirt, and you just go somewhere else. And like, all right, well, we're just going to build civilization over here because you've apparently bought, whatever the hell that means, all of this up with printed money out of nothing, conjured from nothing. And you don't maintain it, so you want everybody else to maintain it. What happens when you lose all the people who maintain it? Yeah, see, that's where all this stuff goes. This doesn't take a genius to figure this stuff out. Everything I'm explaining to you, this is common sense. There is no degrees on my walls. There's no plaques, no ribbons or certificates or any of that stuff. I don't have any of that shit. This is common sense from a business perspective, from someone who does this shit every day. And average business owners like me will tell you this if they can articulate it. Now, whether they can articulate it or not, that's another matter entirely. It doesn't mean they don't know it, though. It doesn't mean they don't understand it. It just means that, maybe I'm a tiny bit more articulate than maybe somebody else. Other than that, we all know this stuff. Again, average business owners know all this stuff, right? And the more that you become akin to being an owner of your own life, which means taking control, instead of saying that you're owed a job or you want to work at a big company, dude, stop trying to do that shit. Start saying, you know what, I'm gonna just go do something on my own. I'm gonna do my own thing. And you're gonna find out very quickly that you'll run into the same problems that a lot of us have had for many, many years, that like, well, how do I get into anything and what has a profit margin? Nothing. Because the currency is worthless. You have to let this currency go away. That would be the US dollar I'm referring to. Oh, and the euro, by the way, on top of that, and the yuan and the RMB and the ruble and all this other bullshit. The rupee. You have to let all this stuff go, right? Now, these countries I mentioned, they don't speak English, but if somebody speaks a different language, for those of you out there that speak Russian, start translating this shit into Russian. And teach people that are in Russia or Ukraine. Teach them what I'm explaining, because it's all relevant to their countries, regardless of whether they're Americans or not. They can still use this information in their own countries. I mean, if you want to help people in other countries, if you truly feel bad for the poor and the downtrodden, this is what you would give them: the gift of learning this stuff and just understanding this basic stuff. And this is not, again, don't elevate me to anything other than just some random fucking guy on the internet. That's where I'm going to stay. I have no interest in doing anything else. I see what kind of problems that causes in people's lives, and I want no part of that. I'm just telling you that the education aspect of this is important, and if you translate this into Spanish, into what's another Spanish, Chinese, French, German, you name it. Translate this stuff into all these different languages. Swahili, if you have to, or that language that they speak in Africa with the whatever the hell it is. I'm not making fun of anybody. I'm just saying, like whatever it is, and translate this stuff into that if there's a translation for it, and get them to understand that as soon as you get away from the idea of currency conjured from nothing, you will find very rapidly all of your wealth, left or right, doesn't matter. Whether you want to be a so-called commie or a so-called capitalist, doesn't make any difference. Whatever wealth it is that you guys have created will come back to you. And you will be the ones who control your own destiny, as opposed to, some giant fucking hedge fund that claims they own every goddamn thing.